All right. We're getting towards the end, guys. We are getting towards the end. So, tonight we're talking about leveraging social media, and very briefly, I'll mention a little bit of quackery. Um, I changed the schedule a little bit. I wanted to put this lecture a little earlier. I wanted to give you guys enough time to put together your final project. Well, both your final project and assignment number 7. So that's one of the reasons I moved this up. So let's kind of get right into it. I am not going to spend that much time on these slides. Part of this assignment and this week's asynchronous assignment is you guys spending time going through some of these websites. Some of this lecture has been done in person before and probably lends itself a little better to in-person discussion. So that's why I'm going to move through some of these a little quicker. I don't need to spend a lot of time talking about social media. You guys know what social media is: web-based communication, enable people to interact with each other. Why is it relevant or pertinent to this class? I'll be totally forthcoming. I'm very honest with you guys, right? I put a lot of effort into designing this course, right, and the content that goes into this course. And I had one student last semester leave a comment saying, "Oh, I have no idea why we did this, went over this," and many times I take those comments to heart and I make adjustments as I see fit. Having said that, I do think, right, as this is a professional development course, we have to have some sort of discussion about social media. We live in an age where the vast majority of information nowadays is consumed via social media. So I would be remiss if I did not at least mention how social media can be kind of utilized to kind of gain information as a professional, right? Networks, what do our networks include, right? Well, we've got our professional networks, our alumni networks, our friend networks. But let's go next to the next slide, talking a little bit about our social networking tools. Try to think about each of these tools independently, because I'm going to kind of come back to this and think about the type of delivery within these networks, right? First, I want to say, like, Facebook was created in 20 years ago, in 2004. That is mind blowing. That Facebook, it's weird that it's been around for 20 years. It doesn't feel like it's been 20 years. Um, Now, all of these subsequent tools, I mean, I guess short of blogs, have come out really, or at least gained popularity after 2004. I mean, nowadays everyone has a podcast. It's almost a joke because everyone considers themselves a premier expert about every single topic. Um, but the point I'm trying to make with regards to these networking tools is, yeah, I mean, these have only been around for 20 years or less. Imagine what the next 20 years will bring with regards to consuming information, right? And all of these things, I mean, can and have been very easily monetized. So these all can be these kind of mini professional tools to increase your own personal revenue. I mean, you guys know I do consider money very important. At the end of the day, we do work to provide our family. We may and should love what we do, it should invigorate us, but we work to provide money. And if we could inevitably somehow utilize some other tools to increase our revenue within our fields, this is another potential outlet. But also think about the delivery here. Obviously, like, Twitter is probably the shortest type of delivery. I don't know how many characters you're limited to nowadays. Truth be told, I've never really utilized Twitter, just not my thing. But I know plenty of people who, Twitter's their main social media network. Blogs probably are a little outdated nowadays. Some people still have blogs, but blogs were extremely popular in like the 2005 to 2015 era. Those were probably a little bit more of a long form of delivery writing. YouTube, you've got some interesting stuff, especially with TikTok coming out, where YouTube. I mean, you could have deliveries of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. But now, and this was not around 10 years ago, it's because of TikTok. You've got like YouTube Reels and these 10-second clips, 15-second clips that also are very popular on YouTube in addition to Instagram and TikTok. Right? But generally, YouTube is probably like a medium form of delivery. Most people aren't putting together 1 to 2 hour YouTube videos. So I would call it kind of like a medium length of delivery. Meanwhile, podcasts, on the other hand, I do think podcasts are definitely a long form of delivery where, a really short podcast is 20 to 30 minutes, and that's very short, with your average podcast being, potentially an hour, give or take. I listened to a podcast a few weeks ago that was 4 hours. So definitely a long form of delivery. Let's go to the next slide. So with regards to the subsequent slides that are coming, and as you guys are thinking about your final project, right, you have to think about what is these businesses' target audience? What is their mission, right? Are you trying to create a business out of your social media? All right. Are you trying to build out a social network? So it doesn't have to purely be a business. Okay. And I think maybe that's where some students last semester got kind of caught up, where they thought the assignment might have just been, oh, I'm not going to be some sort of influencer. Okay, that's perfectly fine. But you can still use social media to build out a social network and kind of, what did we say when we talked about networking, right? We want to reach and speak to as many people as possible, and preferably people of kind of influence or power, because that's going to, or that could potentially increase our ability to land a more well-paying job. Right, and that kind of goes hand in hand with furthering our career development. So social media, right, doesn't just have to be a business platform that we monetize. It could just be a social network that could inevitably further develop our career. So with regards to, again, these subsequent websites, right, who is their target audience, right? And I'll just be brief here. Your assignment number 7 is going to be you producing some form of social media content, right? So you have to very specifically state who your target audience is for your social media content, right? Are you a local, so an example here is a local business posting on Instagram. And I've been critical of this business, right? So there was a local gym that opened up within about a 20-minute drive from here. And I followed them on social media. And I really wasn't sure what the business was trying to do with their business and their social media platform. Their social media posts had all sorts of kind of crazy terminologies in them, talking about controlled articular rotations or CARs, and inevitably talking about the research that was behind controlled articular rotations, right? Remember, they were just a storefront gym, right? So I just wasn't certain what they were trying to do with their social media. Were they trying to be some sort of influencer, or were they trying to advertise for their gym? And truth be told, in my opinion, I don't think it made sense. You are a local gym. You should be trying to reach a local audience, and you don't need to go into these advanced concepts like controlled articular rotations. Most of their clients were weight loss clients, right? Those people don't care about controlled articular rotations and the research behind them. So you're probably wasting your time. Right? So we've got to be very, very pointed, and we've got to be very purposeful in who we are trying to reach with our social media content, posts, whatever it is. And yeah, that's it. Form of delivery, short form, long form, video, whatever. Just consider what you want to do and what's going to maximize A, your mission, and B, reach the most audience. Right? So for a lot of us, like a long form delivery with a lot of writing, right? Let's say like 1,000 words, 2,000 words, right? That's probably not going to be the best tool to maximize reaching a youth and or teen audience. So we've got to be like careful about how we approach this final assignment. So this is where you guys are going to dive into some of these websites and videos that I sent to you, and you're going to report back on them. So you're going to have a discussion board assignment, and this just counts as participation for the week. So you're going to just simply have to check out, well, this is Renaissance Periodization's mission statement. you guys can check out their website, and then more importantly, you will watch this video from Renaissance Periodization's owner, Mike Isertel. And what I want you to do is tell me, what does this video do well, right? He has a following, right? So he has to do some things well. What do you think Renaissance Periodization target audiences based on their website? And then does this video match up with its mission statement, which I provided on the last slide, right? And then inevitably, like the last question is, what's the objective of this video? Are they looking to build out a influencing business or career development? What is it? Okay. And if you're unsure about some of these things, you might be, shoot me an email. That's part of what this asynchronous stuff is. Reach out. Right, the second one, there's two, is Brains and Gains. So this is the Brains and Gains mission statement from their website. Right, so check out their website, and then this is a YouTube video from the Brains and Gains podcast. And the same exact thing. Report back to it. You don't have to watch the entire thing. I think the Brains and Gains podcast is an entire hour. I don't care. The whole point of this assignment isn't that you absorb all of the content from either of these YouTube videos. We're looking at this more of a networking and or business building platform perspective, right? So what does this video do well from a networking and or business building perspective? Is it entertaining? Is it boring? Does the form of delivery work really well? A high production quality, lots of good editing, all right? Is he really well spoken? Okay, so that's what I'm looking for when I'm talking about what does this video do well, right? Does the video match up with its mission statement? Who do you think is their target audience? And what is the objective of the video in your opinion, right? All right, let's go to, all right, this is the last one before we go to your final assignment, website versus freelance. So we're talking a little bit about building your own website. Stronger by Science is one of my favorite podcasts. I do frequent their website, not as much nowadays, but you should check out the Stronger by Science website. It is owned by one singular individual. That is Greg Nuckols. I should say Greg Nuckols and his wife, right? What do you think their mission statement is, right? It is very different than probably a more popular website. Maybe, I don't know if it's still popular nowadays, but T Nation. Both of these websites, right, and both of these platforms are trying to reach the resistance training community. However, both are very, very different, right? So I would encourage you to check out both of these websites. I'm not asking you to report back on Stronger by Science or T Nation, right? I am asking you to report back on Renaissance Periodization and Brains and Gains podcast. But I want you to just give you some exposure to two different types of platforms. I'll just tell you, T Nation is a freelance website, right? T Nation brings in a lot of external writers to produce articles for them. And finally, the most important part of these sets of slides that I hope you've been listening to is your final assignment number 7, which is creating content, right? So you have two options, right? I want you to create some sort of social media / networking content piece. And this is a topic of your choice. The form of delivery can be one of two things. You can either create a YouTube video that is 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 4 minutes in length, or you can create some sort of article, hypothetical article, but it should be based in reality, right? Or blog post that is approximately 500 to 750 words. This is not an incredibly challenging assignment, but you still have, I don't know the due date off the top of my head, I think 2 to 3 weeks to submit this. I think closer to 3 weeks, right? A few things you should keep in mind when you are creating your content, right? 1, it should be something that intrigues you, right? You are allowed to create content on anything within exercise science of your choice, but it's probably going to be more social media driven. It could be more networking driven, like a presentation to a set of peers potentially, right? But while you are creating this, like I said, it should be something you're very interested in. 2, when you're creating it, who is your target audience, right? Try to be very, very specific. In fact, I want you to add this at the end of your submission so I know who the target audience is. Is your content professional? As you guys see, the levels or degrees of professionalism will vary, right? You could look at the Renaissance periodization YouTube video that I posted. Is that professional? It's appropriate for his audience. I don't know if I would say it's professional, but it is appropriate for his audience. And I think it is okay, and not only okay, I think it is required to start to use colloquial language. If any of you guys have had me in other classes, I would say, especially with regards to scientific writing, avoid colloquial language. In this project, you should use colloquial language, right? If you are trying to reach a very specific target audience, speak to that target audience the way they like to be spoken to, okay? So, yeah, I'm talking about the language, that's fine. While editing or creative editing like the Renaissance periodization video is not mandatory, I do think it's a nice touch and a plus, and it makes the video a little bit more easy for me to watch. The last major component to this is that the assignment needs to be evidence-based. So whatever you're putting out, we're not just spewing randomness into the social media atmosphere, all right? We are trying to produce genuine content. So whatever your content is within the realm of exercise science, like, I don't know, is squatting bad for your knees? Right? Hint, it's not bad for your knees. There should be evidence to back this up. Maybe you want to talk about using high-intensity interval training versus steady-state cardiovascular training to maximize fat loss. That's a debatable topic. I'm not going to nitpick on whatever you choose. There should be evidence to support whatever you are saying and stating. And you should include the mention of the research study. Something like, okay, talking about is squatting bad for your knees? Yeah, well, squatting is bad for your knees is a myth that was developed by Dr. Carl Klein in the 1970s, looking at his study, blah, 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 blah. Recent evidence supports the use of deep squats. And you could look at, there's certain research studies that talk about the amount of force or shear force at the knee joint at 90 degrees, which is actually the highest at 90 degrees. Or you could look at other studies, but whatever, right? You guys get the idea. You have to mention the study within it, whether it's the video or whether it's the article. Give me a quick little summary of the article. You could do that in the video in something like 1 to 3 sentences. Same thing in the blog, 1 to 3 sentences would be appropriate. Make sure we include an APA citation. I will spot check these citations, making sure that, again, you're not spewing quackery. If we were ever in person, I would show you a video. I typically do this with all of my interns that have come through my training facility. So when I had interns, I would require them to do a social media piece, right? Where they would have to, for example, I had one of my interns do a 2 to 3 minute video on technique in the barbell snatch. And he would talk about, I don't know, how to perform the snatch. He would talk about common mistakes in the snatch, so on and so forth, right? But you guys kind of get. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about is quackery, which is the promotion of useless medical treatments, or just the promotion of really kind of useless things within our field. The example here is something like providing nutrition information without proper training. We can provide basic information, right? You guys have had experience in classes with regards to nutrition. I think it's okay to provide like recommendations on macronutrients. That covers and is within the scope of exercise science and classes you've had, I believe. However, we're not going to very specifically try to manipulate some sort of dietary protocol to improve, diabetes outcomes. That's not your job. That is a registered dietitian's job, right? So we have to really understand our scope of practice. And then obviously when you're consuming information, we've got to understand the scope of practice. Now we've got some red flags that we should be looking for when we're consuming social media, but I would also say when you are putting out your content for this assignment, make sure you are not promising that you are going to solve every single problem super easily, right? So promise of quick and easy remedies, right? Claims that are simply too good to be true. Additionally, we want to avoid the use of scare tactics, right? One person I commonly reference with regards to our social media content I don't know, producers is Paul Saladino, right? So Paul Saladino talks all the time about how certain foods are terrible for you and that they're going to hurt your gut and this and that. He uses all sorts of fancy terms in his social media content. And he's essentially using scare tactics to promote his business, his social media network, his products. And that is what you simply want to avoid. So when you don't attack or try to scare other people into buying or buying into whatever it is you're putting out there, obviously personal attacks on others, and then lastly, I understand like we're at the undergraduate level, but many of you guys are going to pursue graduate degrees, right? We should be very, very, very careful when we talk about the superiority of certain approaches, dietary supplements, or unconventional medical practices. Um, we, I rarely will speak in absolutes, right? And even just said, I just said it, I will rarely. I could have easily said, I'll never speak in absolutes. But when I talk about like training outcomes, right, I never say, oh, the barbell back squat is the best exercise to make you run faster. I never say, oh, the barbell clean is the one trick to improve your sprinting performance. Simply because that's not the case. I'm not going to say the barbell back squat is far superior than the barbell front squat, and both are far superior than plyometrics. I think all have their time and place in a well-balanced training program. And I think, when you guys are putting out these content pieces, be very, very careful, right, with regards to your statements. I don't want you stating that these things are the be-all, end-all, that they solve every single problem, right? Sure, you can claim that it is a great tool to improve a specific outcome, and that's fine as well, as long as you also back that up with research, okay? That's pretty much it for the assignment. I will post and type a few of the instructions as well. If you guys are confused or you're not certain about the topic, just shoot me an email. You've got 2 to 3 weeks till this assignment's due, so you have plenty of time.